Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. coming to you live from Walker Middle School. And in this video, working on the study guide still for this Unit 7, but we're looking at these Pythagorean Theorem ideas here. So always know that we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Again, c is always the hypotenuse, which is opposite of the right angle, and is the longest of these three sides. So for this first one, when you are trying to identify which of these form a right triangle, you have to always still use that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and you want to say, all right, I know that the longest side should be the largest value. So for this first one, what I can do is I can take 9 squared, which is 81. I can take 16 squared, which is 256. We're saying, are those two added together, do they equal 625? And so it can look like this. You would say, all right, does 81 plus 256, does that equal 625? Well, very obviously it does not. And so we know that this is not a right triangle. For the middle one, we have 17 squared, which is 289. So this is 289. Then we have, this is 256 again, 256. We're saying those two added together, do they add up to 324, which is 18 squared? And since those do not add up to, obviously, 324, this is also not a right triangle. For the third one, we have 5 squared, which is 25. We have 12 squared, which is 144. When we add those together, do we get 169, which is 13 squared? Since those do add up, meaning 25 plus 144, is that equal to 169? Since it is a true statement, that means it is a right triangle. Moving to the far left one, I'll make sure it's on the screen, which I believe it is. In the bottom, it has 7 squared, which is 49. This is going to be 49. And the other leg, it has 24 squared, which is 576. And then 25 squared is 625. Again, make sure you can set these up and see if they're equal to each other. So you're saying, does 49 plus 576, since that is equal to one another, we know that this is a right triangle. So we'd say, yes, this is a right triangle. For this middle one, right away, we say, hey, I know that my hypotenuse has to be the largest of the three. So is 4 the largest of the three? It is not. So this is not a right triangle. And then in the last one, we're saying, all right, is 49 plus 64, is that equal to 225? Very obviously it does not, so it is not a right triangle. Again, make sure you're still using a squared plus b squared to equal c squared. And the next page, it reads like this. It says, for the rectangle shown, which equation could be used to find the value of x? So we know, again, still opposite of the right angle is our hypotenuse. And so for this, we would say our hypotenuse is going to be x for this one. So we're saying, okay, it's still going to be a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And so the equation that we would have is something like this. It should be 11 squared plus 4 squared is equal to x squared. So let's see what we can find here. So we have 4 squared, 11 squared equals x squared. So we're gonna choose that one. For number 3, it says, John travels north 36 miles and then east 48 miles. Google Maps on its own indicates that he is 60 miles from his original starting point. Which equation could not be used to determine if these measurements form a right triangle? So we're just saying, again, using these three sides, which would be set up correctly. So again, make sure you're thinking about, similar to number 1, how it would be set up. And so we could say, all right, for number 3, it would have to be A, since again we said 60 has to be the hypotenuse, and since 60 is C for this one, it would be, so again, since 60 is the hypotenuse, that means it has to be the largest, which has to be set equal to the sum of the other squares. So for that one, it would be A. Moving on to number 4, it reads, select all correct answers, and it says similar to the same idea, and we're trying to figure out which of these is a right triangle. So what I can do is I can set them up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up like this. I'm going to have a nice little split apart like this. Again, these are called the Pythagorean triples. That's just 3 values that form a right triangle. So for this first one, again, we know that it has to be 26 is going to be your largest value. So that means that that has to be the hypotenuse. And so we're saying, all right, does 10 squared plus 24 squared, is that equal to 26 squared? Well, let's check. Does 100 equal 576? Sorry, not equal, plus 576, does that equal 676? Yes, it does. So this is a right triangle. For the middle one, it says 3, 4, and 5. So we're saying that 5 is going to be our hypotenuse, and so you can have it like that. If you want to, you can get used to drawing them in order from least to greatest, where greatest is always the hypotenuse. So we can say 9 plus 16 is equal to 25. So this one is also a right triangle. For the third box, we have 1, 2, and 3. So it has 1 squared plus 2 squared. Is that equal to 3 squared? Well, if we have 1 plus 4, is that equal to 9? Which it is not, and so that is not a right triangle. For the bottom left one, we have 10, 17, and 7. So we have to set it up like this. We have 7 squared plus 10 squared. Is that equal to 17 squared? Is 49 plus 100. Is that equal to 289? It is not, and so this is not a right triangle. For the bottom one, it has 1.5 as squared, 2 squared, and we have 2.5 squared. Again, make sure you're saying the largest value is that hypotenuse. So then again, even though you have decimal values, you can still set this up. So you have 2.25 plus 4. Is that equal to 6.25? And yes, it is. And so for this one, it is a right triangle. Then we have 5 squared plus 7 squared. Is that equal to 35 squared? We're saying, is 25 equal to, no, not equal to, I keep doing that. Is 25 plus 49, is that equal to 35 squared, which is over 1,000? It is not equal to it, so that is not a right triangle. So again, make sure you're seeing those for that one. To continue, it has for number 5, it says which is close to the measure of the slant of the cone. So again, it has that slant of the cone, which is going to be your hypotenuse for this one. So again, make sure it is opposite of that right angle. And so we're looking to set it up like this. We can say, all right, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Again, c is going to be our hypotenuse, so we have x squared, and then we have the 2 side lengths, so we have 20 squared plus 35 squared. Again, make sure you can set it up like this. You can have, this is going to be 400 plus, we have 1,225, which was the previous one as well. That's okay. And we have, is this equal to x squared? Again, add these together because we're solving for x. Make sure you can combine like terms first. So we have 1,625 is equal to x squared. Take the square root of both sides. So we have square root of these is going to give us this. We're going to have x is going to be about, we can say about 40.31, which again, it's asking for the closest, and so we would say that. So again, make sure you're seeing those carefully. For number 6, it has the picture already drawn for you. And so again, you can have that right angle. Opposite of that right angle is 60. And so it's saying, okay, we have to now find a leg here. And so for this one, I can maybe do it on the side. So it says, all right, if I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and we can say x is our missing leg. We have 45 squared and 60 squared. So we have x squared plus, and we have 2025 is equal to 3,600. Again, get the variable by itself, subtract 2025 from both sides, and we end up with x squared is equal to 1575. Take the square root of both sides. Again, that's that inverse operation. We're trying to get that variable by itself. And so we have x is going to be about 39.686. Again, it says round to the nearest whole number. So we need to say, okay, that's that one column. Make sure you're rounding up. And so we can say this is going to be about 40. So we'd say for this one, it would be about 40, what do we say, 40 miles, 40 miles. For number 7, it says a firefighter is placing a ladder. This is very similar to the quiz question we had on the back. This is actually very similar to number 4 on the quiz. Again, make sure that you're drawing a picture carefully. And so it should look maybe something like this. Again, you have a 20-foot ladder. Actually, you have a 40-foot ladder. So you have a right triangle always, because that's the shape we're talking about. That means the 40-foot ladder is here, and it's 20 feet from the building. Again, have your variables set up like this. And so we say, all right, I have x squared plus, again, always have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and opposite of that right angle is our hypotenuse. So we have 20 squared is equal to 40 squared. Again, solve for x. Again, we're looking for that missing leg. And so we have, all right, we have x squared plus 400 is equal to 1600. Be able to get that value by itself. And so we have, let's see, we have x squared. We subtract 400 from both sides. So we have x squared equals 1200. Take the square root of both sides. We have square root of x squared, square root of 1200. And we're going to say x is going to be about 34.6. So we'd say for this one, it would be C. And lastly, again, make sure you can set up these right triangles carefully. So for this last one, it says you want to solve for that missing side length. So you're saying, okay, this squared plus this squared should find your value. So we're going to say, all right, we can say that this missing side length, I have this is going to be about 3.6. So for this one, it should be 3.6. For my next one, I should have 4.4. For this one, it's looking for the leg, since the opposite of the right angle is the hypotenuse. And so for this one, you need a value that is less than 4.7. So your only choice left, actually your two choices left are going to be 2.25 for this one. And similar idea, you're looking for a missing leg. And so you're going to have x is going to be 4.8. So again, if you need help setting these up, make sure you do ask. Make sure you are solving using a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Make sure you're using those formulas carefully and answer them to the best of your ability.